What is up, guys? Happy Russell Journey, episode 6. This time round, I am going into Sufism, discussing Islam. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's clearly a clash between Islamic culture and Western culture. So, in order to build some bridges, I spoke with my friend Raymond, who is a Sufi Muslim. And what Sufism basically is a spiritual side to Islam, and he has some beautiful pieces of wisdom out there. I don't think that just having this one conversation is going to change the world, but maybe it will have an effect that will ripple out, and I can tell you that he has forever changed my outlook on life. Positive influence through just one conversation. Have a listen.
Well, yeah, we'll get started. So,
perfect.
I'm running this podcast, and what I try and do is I try and talk with. Well, it seems I spoke with one friend that I haven't met on the internet. Otherwise, everyone else I've managed to kind of like grab them online.
Nice.
So I'm in like a lot of groups. Like you and I are in the Alan Watts discussion
Oh,
group.
sure. Delightful. Yes.
Yeah. Like I grab sort of random people and see if I can get their thoughts on certain subjects.
Well, I think that's excellent because then you're actually drawing from a pool of people who are average people, not necessarily people who are, defending themselves on top of a hill, saying this is my career's on the line. I'm gonna, it's more genuine, more natural. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you've got like an expert in the field, they're not going to budge. Like they know what they know, and they have those sort of like axioms that they can't escape from. Like it's like they've got their mind made, and they're always going to try and put that side forward. Whereas, yeah, like you said, if I take bits from random people, a bit more humble, we can change our minds. We're allowed to. We're just human.
Absolutely, I love this approach.
So what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit on it's controversial, it's difficult, but it seems to be a very real problem, especially out in France at the moment. There's a lot of tension between Islam and Western culture, and I wanted to grab your opinion on this. Because I think, I don't know. Would you describe yourself as Muslim? Because you described yourself. You said you're a Sufi, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I try to not. So as a Sufi, Sufis are mystics, and as a mystic, one tries to not live in the world of duality. We really try to cultivate a sense of oneness. So by walking around and saying, well, I'm a Muslim, I'm creating a barrier between me and my fellow man. So to answer your question in a very technical sense, yes, I'm a Muslim. I practice Islam. I keep the precepts of Islam. I do my daily prayers 5 times. I abstain from pork. I do the best that I can. But I don't exist in this world with this knowledge that I'm a Muslim. I see no distinction. I see there's one faith, one religion, so to speak, and there are as many paths to God as there are human beings.
Man, that's beautiful. So I was watching another podcast. This is a few months back. I think it was actually Rupert Sheldrake was speaking with one of my friends, and I think he was telling a story. I'm paraphrasing. This isn't accurate, but I think it links to your point. He was saying that he was studying in India, and he was asking one of his teachers how he could become closer to God, and his teacher basically said, practice Christianity. And he was like, well, I'm not sure that, I'm in India and I'm learning about Hindu philosophy. Why would I study Christianity? And he said, well, they all point to the same place, but you come from a Western culture where you're more familiar with the sort of Christian sort of axioms, and you'll be able to find God through Christianity rather than through what I can teach you here. So is that what you're saying is like one religion?
Yes. So talking about esoteric experiences and esoteric wisdom, for lack of a better word, is always difficult because it exists outside of the realm of the logical mind. So here I am having to try to use a logical and rational faculty of my mind to explain something that is not logical or rational. So this dialogue is going to miss a lot of the nuances and truth that mystics, regardless of their creed, share in common. But if you were to take a Zen Buddhist, a Kabbalistic Jewish person, a Sufi mystic, an Islamic Sufi, a Christian mystic, a Advaita Hindu, and these are people who have been on this path for a long time and they have attained stations in spirituality. They're all speaking about non-duality oneness, that there is only one reality, just as an ocean expresses itself through waves and the trough and the crest. To somebody existing in duality, they see separate happenings. They make a distinction between the wave, the crest, and the trough. But in reality, those are all separate happenings of one eternal essence, the ocean. So likewise, trying to use that metaphor, people on the mystical path, again, regardless of what vehicle drives them to that destination, be it Christianity, Islam, etc., they travel that highway, and when they get to the city, that city of knowledge is the truth of oneness. And at that point, distinction between religions, it's easy to say, oh, I don't believe in all religions are one, like that's a very easy thing to state without actually knowing that to be true. Because book knowledge and spiritual knowledge are two fundamentally different things. So people who have come to this knowledge via spiritual truths, via direct experience, believe this not just as an intellectual nicety, but as a fact of reality. I feel like perhaps I'm going off on a tangent, so I'm going to stop myself and allow you to make your comments. And
I'm really interested in this. So were you raised as a Sufi, or was it something, or were you raised as a Muslim and then you sort of ventured into Sufism?
So I was born and raised as a Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic.
My mother's side are all from Italy. And on my father's side, it's quite complicated, but for many years, people resided in France. My father was born in France. Et puis je parle français, c'est mon deuxième langue. So I have some...
Oui, oui.
Ouais, et toi aussi, tu parles français? un peu, naturellement.
I know a very small amount of French. I had a French skating partner, and she tried to get me to speak French, and I got a little bit, but not enough.
Okay. Well, so my family, my father's side are from, they had resided in France for many years, culturally French, but their ethnic background was Jewish and from Russia. And I suspect you're familiar with, pogroms and migration out of that region. So these people ended up settling in Britain, actually in Yorkshire, and they converted from Judaism to Catholicism. Now, I always found that quite interesting. I don't know if there's a substantial Catholic population there within a sea of Protestants, but I live with the mystery. Once they became Catholic, then, well, my father, when he was born, he was raised Catholic. So I was raised Catholic, but with this very strong awareness of a Jewish heritage, a Jewish culture. I went to Catholic school as a boy. I always felt a spiritual connection to the teachings of Jesus Christ, but I always struggled with the dogmatism of Catholic orthodoxy. I struggled with notions of the Trinity. I struggled with church doctrine, but I never struggled in feeling a connection to the spiritual message of Jesus. When he says in the New Testament, God is love, that's a very strong statement if you actually marinate in it. It's hard to reconcile that statement with church doctrine, or at least it was for me.
So do you feel like there's a almost like a incompatibility between sort of Jesus's message and the doctrines that are taught?
Do I see an incompatibility between the teachings of Jesus and church doctrine? Was that?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say that in my soul, in my spirit, I can't see how the two fit together properly. I don't want to talk ill of any religion or any devotee within that particular religion. And I have no ill will towards any faith. But in my experience, and again, walking the mystic path, it's all about the knowledge that you receive from your experience. So I just want to emphasize that, so I'm not making these absolute statements, that I'm talking solely from an experiential perspective. I could not reconcile the two in my understanding and in my spiritual journey. That's not to say that another person couldn't. They could reconcile the two, and they could have a very successful and fruitful spiritual journey, attaining, to use the Christian verbiage, theosis, or union with God, or enlightenment, or nirvana, or whichever tradition one draws from.
Right, it's all saying the same thing, really.
Yeah, because, and what is language? Language are this is the realm of symbols, correct? And symbols are not the truth. Symbols are a way of trying to communicate a truth.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I want to bring us back to something real quick, because I've just realised we did go off on a tangent.
Yeah, I'm good at that, so you'll have to reel me in.
No, that's so am I, apparently. But so you've got this very colourful background of all different sorts of heritage, lots of heritages, lots of different religious schools. So why Sufism?
Mm-hmm. So there is a way of thought in mysticism that the divine will guide you on the path that best suits your journey. So from that statement, I can say I did not choose Islam or Sufism. I had no choice in the matter. It was delivered to me. I was standing on the shore waiting for a craft to come and take me to the other side, and that craft happened to have a flag of Sufi Islam. Okay? Having said that, when I was younger, I was in a touring punk rock band. We would travel across up and down the East Coast of the United States playing thrashy grunge punk rock music. And one of my mentors in the local scene, if you think I have a colorful background, his name is Dominic. And Dominic is a former convict, a former white supremacist who was also at one point in time very involved in the punk rock scene. This was after his white supremacist phase. And then ultimately, when I met him, he was working at a grocery store and he was a Muslim.
Wow. Okay.
And so, he had this habit of whenever there was new young kids trying to get involved in the local punk scene, of reaching out to them and being kind of a mentor. I would spend hours with Dominic. I mean, I couldn't wait to hang out with him. He was interesting and cool, and he never talked to me about religion. He never tried to convert anything to me. But I'm this young kid really trying to get in with the local bands that were, my idols. They had been around for years while I was coming up. And he was like, I know this person, that person, and this person, naming all these people in different bands that I like. I want to know them. And he's like, hey, I can connect you guys. So how about this? On Friday, I want you to come to Elijah's Promise Soup Kitchen in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And we're all going to hang out, get there early in the morning, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I show up, and what's going on in front of the soup kitchen? All of the guys that I want to meet and see, including my mentor, Dominic, they're giving out food and clothing and all sorts of goods to the economically insecure and impoverished community in New Brunswick. And they did that every Friday and Saturday. And I thought this was cool, but I was kind of like, I'm like 17, so I'm kind of like, oh, like what? And he goes, serving the community and serving your fellow man, there's nothing more punk rock than that. I did not realize until years later he was teaching me Sufism in the language that I could understand. I could not understand, metaphysical terminology. I couldn't understand words like wahat al-wujud. I couldn't understand the meaning of tawhid or of khidmat, service. These concepts were so far above me. But what could a 17-year-old punk rock kid understand? There's nothing more punk rock than serving your fellow man. That imprinted on me. From that point onwards, I eventually became the lead person for this organization, which was called HEPCAT, Homeless Empowerment Project Community Action Team, HEPCAT. Mm-hmm. I moved from New Jersey, where I'm from, to Georgia. And while in Georgia, I created HEPCAT under a different name. And I did that for many years, involved in helping people. But during this entire period, I would continuously meet Sufis. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would just put Sufis in my way as I was navigating life. And I would have all these spiritual questions. I tried to be a good Catholic, but I had a hard time. I looked at yoga and Hinduism. I was one of those people who was trying to find a place to fit in spiritually. I had all these questions. I had all these, I was so lost spiritually, but nowhere I went could I really find a spiritual home, so to speak. And over a 15-year period, God just kept putting Sufi Muslims in front of me. And I had a hang-up about becoming a Muslim. I had a hang-up about that. Something that you should know about me, and you'll probably find interesting, is being from New Jersey. I grew up 20 miles outside of New York City, and my uncle, who was one of the most important people in my life, died as a first responder in 9/11. That was my first exposure to Islam.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I suppose even if it's in your subconscious, as Westerners, we kind of tend to have a negative connection to Islam, even if it exists in our subconscious, because of tensions that have happened in the past and that are currently happening.
Absolutely. So I resisted this idea of becoming a Muslim because in my mind, a Muslim was a particular thing. Mm-hmm. I had created an idol, an image in my mind, a caricature, that to be a Muslim meant this. And I didn't want to be that thing that I created in my mind, which to me was what it meant to be a Muslim. So yeah, I'll pause there and let you ask your next question, because again, I'm good at going if you don't stop me.
Yeah, no. Well, I was listening very intently because it was a very interesting sort of origin story, let's say. I guess one of the questions that I want to clarify is you keep on calling it mysticism. Is that right? Can you
Yes.
just clarify what that means? Because I think a lot of people that will listen to this won't really know what that means. Like if I hear it and I'm just coming from an outside point of view, I would imagine something to do with magic or.
Sure. Oh, that's a great point. So, when in the world of spirituality, when one is talking about mysticism,
Oh, Ray, I think I've lost you, buddy. You've paused. Uh-oh. Ray, hold on. Sorry. I think we lost connection there. Like you literally
okay.
Yeah, you got up to the point you went, when we're talking about mysticism, and then it paused. So I can edit it and cut some bits out or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I'll continue. So for the mystic, regardless of what religion they affiliate with, they're turning inwards. They understand that there's a place for exoteric book knowledge, but they know that the journey doesn't stop at studying book knowledge, the intellectual knowledge. That the real path to God, according to the mystic, would be turning inwards and attaining esoteric knowledge based on direct experience. So the mystic in sum is those people who attain spiritual stations by turning inward and looking for the divine within themselves, as opposed to looking outside of themselves for the truth.
See, this is I'm in as you can probably tell, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, and I try to get an array of different opinions on life and what have you. And one of the groups that I'm in is this atheist group. And I think one of the things that the atheist group sort of miss out on is that anytime spirituality is brought up, it's instantly considered as along the same lines as fundamentalist religion. You know, they see spirituality and they get it confused with ghosts and unfalsifiable things that people just believe in. But I think that they're missing a little trick there. I think there's a lot to be found by searching for answers within yourself, and I think your perspective is that through being a Sufi, that it's speaking with a language that you can kind of relate to, and sort of allow yourself to dig a bit deeper. Maybe other religions or other practices weren't doing it for you. Am I right in saying that?
I think that's very accurate. I know people who identify in different traditions who I consider to be teachers to me. In fact, one of my teachers is a Christian mystic, and his lineage comes from an Orthodox Christian community, actually out of South Africa. And I've learned a tremendous amount of the spiritual journey from him. And he knows full well that I'm a Sufi and that I'm a Muslim, and he understands that those labels are just that. That those are just garments we wear to self-identify. But those self-identifications is not the self with a capital S. It's the self with a lowercase s. The person that says, I am Raymond, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Sufi, I'm a man, I like coffee. That's not from the mystic perspective, that's not who you are.
Right.
That's
Those
that's the persona you play.
the mask. Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, at a certain level, you can interact with mystics from various traditions, and you really don't feel a distinction. I don't think of him as a Christian mystic, even though that's the tradition he comes from.
So I've got a quick question for you, because you were saying that that's just like the persona or the mask we wear. You know, I'm Luke. I like tea. I like figure skating. These are all the things that I put forward as my persona.
Sure.
And then, so from your perspective, what's and this might not be a easy question to answer, but what's lying underneath the persona? What's the real you?
So the real you, the self, is the awareness that is aware that it's aware.
Yeah, I mean, it
Okay.
makes sense. That's a hard answer to wrap your head around, but
it is. But let me give it to you this way. So the question that I would invite you or anybody who wants to contemplate these things, right, is when you're sitting there or when you're doing whatever and you have thoughts going into your mind, whatever they may be, ask yourself the question, who is it that it's observing the thoughts? By simply asking yourself, who is it that's observing these thoughts, then you're confronted with there is something that's thinking and something that's observing. Oh, well, now you have two. Well, then that means that your thoughts are not you. That means that your thoughts are something outside of you. So then now the question is, who is this that is doing the observation? That's the real you. And
yeah,
the beginning of the path of knowledge of self, again, capital S, is the investigation of that you that's doing the observation. Because that you who's doing the observation of those thoughts, and if you follow this train of thought and you practice it, that you is genderless, is raceless, is infinite. It's neither liberal or conservative, etc., etc. In other words, it's non-dual. It's one.
It just is.
It just is. In its eternal presence. It's an eternal now. And it's, you know, again, I'm trying to talk about things that are hard to put to words. Maybe I just don't have the vocabulary for it. But I think of it this way. In mathematics, when people think, what is the greatest number? They might think of some really, 150 trillion, blah, 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 blah. Well, for me, that number, the greatest number is 0. Why? 0 times 1 trillion.
0.
So a trillion represents the world of illusion. All the things that I'm outside in this beautiful garden. I have all these beautiful trees. I have hummingbirds flying around. It's delightful. All of that is contained within the one. That one is actually a 0, a nothing. But to the mystic, the mystery is that nothing loves you and is experienced through love. That love is, to, if I can speak like Star Wars, love is the Force.
Well, see, this is one of the things that I've heard this a lot, and I've kind of nodded my head and gone, yeah. But I'm going to sort of test you a little bit now, because I've been wanting to ask this to quite a few different people, and it's never come up in conversation, but now it has.
Okay.
How do we know that the fundamentalness of this one is love?
So,
I mean, I know there's through personal experience that you can feel it, but I'm also quite analytical, and I don't know if that's enough to go on.
Sure. Well, let me start by saying the mystic has no interest in converting people. So so trying to find the most compelling arguments to tell you why you should have that view is outside of the realm of a mystic.
Mm.
One, two. I don't necessarily know I'm qualified with the right vocabulary to make the compelling argument, but I will give an attempt at it.
Mhm.
In the Quran, or rather in one of the hadiths, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad alaihi wasallam, Allah is quoted as saying, I was a hidden treasure, and I wanted to be known, so I created creation so that they could find me. So, what is this hadith telling us? That all of creation, everything came out of this immense longing, this passionate love to know oneself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of these mediums by which he could self-reflect and come to know and love himself. All creation was created through the power of love, so that love could be known unto itself. The Sufis have an expression in India, Ishq Allah Mabud Allah, which means something like Allah is love, lover, and the beloved.
Mm. Mm. So I suppose that's why we have this. Well, not everyone has this, but I think a lot of us gain a lot of pleasure from allowing others to be happy. It's why a lot of people give their time.
Sure.
It's you sort of not only are you creating others happy, but you're gaining a lot of satisfaction through knowing that you've created something good and you can see it unraveling right in front of you.
Precisely. I think that's true. I think that love, I think in our modern societies, we are a bit estranged from love. We have, in many Western countries and societies, we've made it a virtue to be selfish, to pursue your goals, to, if necessary, trample over somebody else if that advances your own personal cause. And obviously, I'm speaking very generally. Not every human being feels that way, but I feel like as a culture, this is a very strong thing.
Yeah, it's definitely
so. So love is not always easy to cultivate, but when you feel it, even if it's just holding the door open for a little old lady, this very mundane thing, you know that you can't put it to words, but it ignites something inside of you. Even if it's just for a moment, you feel good. You feel there's a sense of connectivity to something that you don't quite understand because you've tapped into something essential.
Mm.
Interconnectedness. That simple act of holding that door was a moment of oneness, because you would want somebody to hold that door for you. And in fact, by holding that door for them, you held it actually for yourself, because there's only one self. And that one self expresses itself through mediums. And what makes humanity a great medium is that we have the senses. Our senses are the faculties by which the beloved is known to the lover.
That's beautiful, man. Okay. Yeah, I know you're not in the game to sort of convert people. I know it's not what your goal is, but going back to I guess the tensions going on with Western culture and Islamic culture. What observations have you made? Like, where do you think this is all coming from?
Okay, so before I go into where is this all coming from, I think there's a perspective that's important for this conversation. I would like to put that forth first.
Hmm.
So let's first talk about Christianity. Just because you grew up in the West, I grew up in the West, and that's a good starting point for us to have a connection with. Christianity is not a monolith, right? There's Catholicism, there's Orthodoxy, there's Protestantism, and within those three major denominations, there's a plethora of denominations within them.
Mm-hmm.
And then within that, you have Unitarians, you have Universalists, you have Trinitarians, non-Trinitarians. You have those that believe in universal salvation. You have those that believe that there has been a preordained number of souls that are going to be saved. In other words, if I said, show me Christianity, one could not do that. The question would thus be, which Christianity are we talking about? Right? And then we can go into historic Christianity, the various different sects that once existed that no longer exist, or how did that sect evolve over time to this? So I think the point to the viewers would be made that we can't look at Christianity as a monolith. However, somehow in Western culture, we view Islam as a monolith. So let me go through a few different sects just to make the point. In Islam, you have the traditional Sunni and Shia, and you have the Alevis. Let's start with the Alevis. The Alevis are predominant in Anatolia, in Albania, and they are regarded as progressive Muslims. Some of them drink wine, smoke, and yet they self-identify as Muslim. And the Alevi Bektashi is a very common and popular Sufi Alevi order within mystic circles. You have Yunus Emre was, I don't know if you're familiar with that poet, Yunus Emre. He was an Alevi. He's one of the most celebrated poets in Turkey. Let's look at the Shia. The Shia, you have your 12-verse Shia Islam. You have your Ismailis. You have your Seveners. You have a plethora of different sub-branches of sub-branches of sub-branches of Shia. You have your Alawites, who are in Syria. The Assad regime is often associated with the Alawites. You have Orthodox Sunnism, with their 5 major schools of jurisprudence. Then you also have your Sufis and other mystics like the Malamatiyya. And then you have Wahhabis and Salafis. Well, guess what? The people who commit the overwhelming majority of acts of terror invoking the name of Islam are Wahhabis. So if one were to say, and I'm not saying this is your argument, but if one were to say, look at Islam is this, every time a Wahhabi commits an act of terrorism, what they've done is they've actually done the Wahhabis service by saying, yes, we agree with you, your view of Islam is real Islam.
Sorry, wait, can you say that last bit again? So you say anytime there's an act of terrorism, they're doing the Wahhabis a favor.
So what I'm saying is, whenever an act of terrorism occurs, it is almost always a person influenced by Wahhabism. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, all of these terrorist groups are Wahhabis. So when a person who is either a Wahhabi or inspired by Wahhabism commits an act of terror, and then a Westerner says, look how awful Islam is that, what essentially you've just done is you have validated the claim the Wahhabis are making for themselves that they represent all of Islam.
Right.
And you've done that at the expense of all the other peoples I've just mentioned and those that I haven't mentioned. That would be like saying, look how awful all of Christianity is because of the Spanish Inquisition. It's a preposterous notion. And I think, regrettably, a lot of people in the West, even the most, loving and generous, subconsciously have this Eurocentric view that plurality exists within Western culture, but it must be a monolith in Eastern culture. But that concepts of Orientalism and that type of thing is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, but as you spoke about, that's clearly not the case. It's not a monolith. There are branches. So one of the things that I've been one of the things that I've noticed is there is a lot of tension. I don't think it's just Wahhabi. Am I saying that right? Wahhabi Islam or Wahhabists?
You can say Wahhabism or whichever.
Yeah, I do feel like it is like the Islamic culture as a whole that is feeling this as well. Obviously, they won't act out in the same way, but they feel like there's this disconnect with Western culture. And what both sides are really saying at the core of it is, you don't understand me. And I feel like what we can do as individuals is to do our best to start these conversations and try and bring these groups of people together a little bit more. Because
I agree wholeheartedly that we as human beings, we look at all of our differences and we confuse those differences as somehow like the concrete truth. We neglect the fact that we are one human race and that we have far more commonalities biologically, socially, experientially, than we do differences. Our differences are so trivial. I always have to laugh when I think of the fact that we're genetically 60% similar to a banana. So any cultural differences we have are like infinitesimal compared to the amount of that which we have in common. But I think what happens oftentimes is it's the political nature of the conversations that create confusion. We start using language us and them, and right from the very beginning, we set up a divider.
Mm-hmm.
We don't say those who are concerned about, harmony. We say us on the West and them Muslims over there. We would benefit from reframing the way that we think about even how to approach dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you've noticed that during this conversation, I've tried not to say things like us in the West. I've just said the West.
Oh, yeah, that was not a slight or a jab at you. That was just a general.
No. That's me agreeing. Like I see exactly what you're saying there, and like the less division we can make, the better. Absolutely, yeah.
So and that requires a desire for reconciliation, or maybe not reconciliation is the word, but for unity. My fear is that there are a lot of people who actually don't have an interest in harmony and unity. They have an interest in being correct. They have an interest in being on the winning side. Not winning as a whole, but being on the victorious side. And that's man's ego and his arrogance.
I was just going to say that comes from like a very egocentric place. That's you wanting to be, or the idea of you wanting to be up top.
To dominate. To be the dominator. Anything less than domination feels like submission, like
Right.
being conquest. And I don't think that attitude belongs specifically to the West or to the East or to Christians or Muslims or whomever. I think that's one of our lower base qualities that we have as fallible creatures.
Yeah. I think, well, one of the things that I suppose we could try and do to start to increase awareness to that. Have you heard of Eckhart Tolle?
I have.
Oh man, he's a wizard. Like like I read his book, and he the way that he describes the ego and what the I guess our cultural conditioning can do to us is a real eye opener, and it's then the question is, how would you encourage people to sort of look inwards and to look at themselves? And because I think a lot of these issues that are coming from these collective groups are like collective egos, that the ego of the collective that are clashing as well.
Yeah, so there is a collective consciousness and an individual consciousness, so to speak. Everything has to start with the individual. You can't force. You can't. Let me put it this way. I don't personally believe that you can effect positive change by trying to force people to change. People have to have the will to change. So where does that will come from? Or how does it become established? Well, it needs to be not explained through logic. It needs to be observed and attained through osmosis. If you are around people who are happy and let's say things are going well in their lives, you notice this, and you even subconsciously, you want to tap into that. I wish I had that going on. I wish things were going smoother. It's like, I just got an injury and I'm beside myself. But when she got her injury, she was so stoic and brave, and it didn't faze her, or whatever. You know that there's ways of existing that you wish that you had. So when we observe these traits, these positive traits in others, and especially if we are around them often, subconsciously we try to take those traits. I wish I was more like that. You try to upgrade yourself in a positive way. So the more people are surrounded by encouragement and positive, constructive ways of being, I think through osmosis, people naturally desire to attain those attributes. So it all starts with the individual. The more positivity you inject in your life, the more people in your cipher are going to experience it.
Yeah, so what you're saying is we shouldn't try and force change in the world. We've just got to do the best we can do to be our very best and allow that to ripple out through the people you meet and through society.
The change is the result. It's the change isn't the means. It's the end, so to speak.
Yeah, can you expand on that a bit more?
So I don't say, we all need to be, let me speak in very plain language. We all need to be good, so I'm going to pass laws and I'm going to punish you when you're bad. You're not encouraging or fostering positivity.
Right.
So by getting to the end, saying we're all good now, you actually have not done anything. But by saying we are going to work on ourselves and let this sort of organic unfolding, this natural process of blooming occur, the change is the end result of those behaviors.
Yeah, Man, okay,
It's
that's
hard
cool.
for a lot of us in the West to grasp because we want instant satisfaction. We want something now. Uh,
Well,
we're not.
it's not. I don't think it's only instant gratification that we want. I feel like a lot of people listening to this, if they see a problem, they want to fix it. They want to get their hands in there, and they're like, "I've
Sure.
got to fix
Yes.
it."
I agree. I think, and I apologize to you and to our viewers if it sounds like if I'm speaking ill of the West. I love the West. I love living where I live. I wouldn't change it.
I
But
don't think you
when
come across like that
I
at
just
all.
wanted to make sure because especially in our present climate, it could, just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify to everybody that I'm not anti-West at all. But I think that there are some character traits that we could improve on to be our better selves. And that's true with every individual in the world, no matter where they reside. There are character traits that we can improve on to be better, I guess is the generic term.
Yeah. No, I don't think you've come across as disliking the West in any way, and
Yeah.
even if you have, like, dude, we're allowed to criticize, like.
Yes, of course.
So, but what I was saying, I think a lot of people are gonna want to, like, get their hands on and be like, okay, so what can I do to, like, fix this? But what I think you're saying, and I think I'm agreeing with you as well, is there's nothing you can really do to fix it other than just work on yourself and try and try and sort your area out, work on your little patch and the people that you interact with.
Here is a suggestion that I would have for your viewers if they were really truly committed to wanting to foster change. Every single day, consciously make the decision to do one selfless act for another human being. One. It could be holding the door for somebody when maybe there was just enough time for you to continue walking through, but you decided to hang back and do it. It could be that small. It could be buying somebody's meal. It could be anything. One selfless act. Just one a day. And that simple action will have a profound alchemical transformative effect on your soul. And you don't need to believe that. I'm not suggesting one should adopt a belief. I am just proposing perhaps an experiment. One selfless act every day. Do that for a month. And I think you'll find that there has been a particular awakening, an awareness that's been cultivated inside of you that you were unable to tap into previously.
That's actually a really good challenge. I'm probably going to take you up on that challenge. It would be interesting to see if anyone else is listening to this and they also want to take that on to maybe write down the thing they've done and possibly share some of the.
That would be delightful.
Yeah, I think you've started something here, dude. I think that's pretty awesome.
I hope that we did. Because that's something that any human being can do, regardless of where they are in their life, no matter how wealthy or poor, no matter what your identity is, you can do one selfless act for another human being.
A stranger. Yeah,
I the other day I was driving, and I'm driving and I can see this person wants to cut me off. And there was a moment I was like, I'm not going to let them cut me off. I had that moment. And then I was like, I recognized that thought. I said, you're a tricky one, you ego mind. You are so tricky. You almost had me. So then I slowed down, I let them go, and I thought to myself, that's the way it should have been. That was the way it was supposed to happen. And I don't say that as a way of self, you know, congratulating myself. It's just that sometimes doing that selfless thing takes us to recognize our selfishness in that moment. And that's the hard part of the work. Because the ego says, no, I don't want to be subservient. Because if that person cut me off, I was subservient.
Right. You've just been lowered down.
Exactly. And that's all ego tricks.
Yeah.
That's I think of that as the metaphorical, when the Buddha was tempted by Mara under the Bodhi tree with these demonic thoughts, demons being a symbolism of thoughts of the ego, or Jesus being tempted for 40 days, right, in the wilderness by these ego thoughts. Attaining the spiritual unfolding and awakening is combating those ego thoughts. And I want to really emphasize the universalism here. You do not have to be a Muslim, a Sufi, a Christian, a Buddhist, a Jew, whatever. You don't need to be that to attain a strong sense of spiritual awakening. We have this expression in Islam, al-jihad al-nafs, or jihad al-akbar. The greatest struggle is overcoming your ego mind. That is the greatest jihad. And the only one worth fighting.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. I think, this might be a good place to wrap it up.
Sure.
I've definitely gained a lot from this. Is there anything else you want to add?
The only thing I would love to add is I would love to put out there to people that no matter what religion, culture they come from, that they can make profound change in their lives by cultivating feelings of love. And love is cultivated by acts of selflessness. And that is the secret, if there ever was one, to the Sufi path that anybody can do, is cultivate love. And that love, your spiritual awareness will grow, and you'll gain more insight. And at the end of the day, no matter what you believe, you will be a happier person, but more importantly, you'll be a person at peace. And who doesn't want peace of mind?
Exactly, man. Exactly. And when you're saying acts of selflessness, it's not, and in context of religion as well, it's what you're saying is to be completely selfless, because when people will do acts of selflessness or acts of kindness, these things could be interpreted as a way to get you to heaven. Right?
Sure.
So then it's not really a selfless act. It's
sure.
Now you're gaining something in the long run from it. But to be truly selfless is to not even worry about whatever's coming next. It's to do that. It's to give yourself to that moment in time and do something selfless there.
And these do happen in degrees, right? This is all, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi wasallam said Islam, which means peace from the root SLM, occurs in stages of development. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop. So if you're cultivating peace, you need to be honest with yourself. If I held that door for that old lady and I was like, oh, that's my good thing for the day, it doesn't negate the good thing. But I have to be honest with myself that I did that because I knew, or rather not I did it because, but when I did that, I checked off in my mind, that's the good deed I did. And I'm closer to the goal now because I did one good deed. All we have to do is be honest. It doesn't mean that that good deed or that act of selflessness is void. It doesn't even mean that it's insincere. But what it does mean is that it is part of a process, and a process takes time to cultivate. You're going to start off doing it for somewhat selfish ends, and at some point in time you do it because you can't help but to do it, because the love has been cultivated and has grown and matured. It's like a newborn baby. It's helpless. It needs all this nourishment, and it needs constant attention and focus, but it grows and matures into adulthood. That's
Right.
the sort of love that we're cultivating. We have to nurture it, and we have to be aware that it's vulnerable. We need to be aware that it's going to be messy. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, you're doing these things, and then suddenly you realize that you're living a very fulfilled and meaningful life, and you don't know where it came from. But here we go.
And there we are. Happy Russell Journey, episode 6 with Raymond Fall done. Let me know what you think, guys. Please take part in the 30-day kindness challenge. You can use that hashtag. Let people know what sort of experiences you've had that have been positive on your outlook on life. Or maybe you even tried this challenge and it hasn't gone positive. Why hasn't it gone positive? Why did you not enjoy that? I don't know. Write it down, let us know.